Good afternoon, everyone. I, Ankit, on behalf of NEN and Vadvani Foundation, would like to invite you all for this webinar and also introduce our expert, Mrs. Vinita Ananth. Vinita is the CEO and founder of CEO Council of India, which aspires to be country's largest and the most influential CEO community. She is also CEO and founder of Gitgrow, a software company that is on a quest to simplify web analytics, providing an all-in-one web optimization solution that improves conversations and engagements. Previously, Vinita was the CEO of Social Use Software and Services, a company that offers actionable insights to marketers, helping them optimize their campaigns and customer engagements. Vinita has over 13 years of professional experience in software and services. Vinita's extensive experiences include leadership positions in software sales, business planning, service management, application delivery, and business development. Vinita was instrumental in the growth and success of Mercury Interactive and HP Entrepreneurial SaaS venture, making it amongst the top 10 SaaS ventures and the largest SaaS IT management company in the world. Vinita has been speaker at various conferences in Singapore, Australia, China, Japan, India, and Hong Kong, like Springboard's SaaS Asia, CTO Forum, CIO Summit, IT Executive Summit, and QI Software Testing Conference. Vinita holds a bachelor's degree in electronics engineering and an MBA from Santa Clara University. Before I hand over the floor to Vinita, a quick note to all our attendees. You will all be on mute. You may ask questions by typing in the panel provided. Our expert will answer the questions after his presentation. Over to you, Mrs. Ananth.
Thank you very much, Ankit, for the introduction, and thank you, NEN, for the opportunity to talk about a topic that's very close to my heart. I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs on an ongoing basis, and especially, I'd say, women reach out to me and ask me the question as to how I'm able to make it work, balance between work and home, and it's really, I think, an oxymoron where I don't think there is an easy way to balance work and home. And these days, a lot of people are starting to use the word integrating, or finding a way to bring together work and home in a way that you feel is comfortable to suit your lifestyles and the needs of your family. So I'll talk just a little bit about myself before I go into some of the things that I would say I use as mantras when I try to balance work and home. Okay, a little bit about myself. I'm in my previous role, I was the director of HP Software as a Service for Asia Pacific and Japan. On the professional side, I got out of a larger company about 2.5 years ago and started a company called Social Fuse, which I did for about 2.5 years. I did consulting in the social media space. It was a very hot space. And then felt that I really wanted to build a software company. And that's how the idea for Gitgrow germinated. I'm currently the founder of Gitgrow, which is we're trying to simplify web analytics. I also have been very passionate about community building, and it's one of those initiatives that I've wanted to do in the past, never got a chance, and about 9 months ago started to work with a couple of partners of mine, Tapan Garg and Amrinder Singh, to build out the CEO Council of India, which is a member-driven community of chief executives. So I would say most of my background has been in tech and technology, a bit of community building more recently. And on the personal side, I'd say one of the things that I really like doing is playing tennis. I picked this up when I started playing along with my kids. I didn't have any skills in tennis before that, but kids started to pick up the game, and I felt I really wanted to learn it also with them. And now all of us, the entire family, play tennis. So on the personal side, I grew up in India. I got married, and after I graduated, I did my engineering in electronics and communication in Mysore. And after that, I went to the US. I worked for about 12 years in various tech companies. During that time, I had 2 children, Trisha, who is my oldest, and she's 11 years old, Bishop, who is now 8 years old. And throughout the 12 years that I was in the US, I worked full-time. I got an MBA degree part-time. When my husband and I returned back to India, we decided to adopt twin girls, and their names are Tara and Richa. You can see the pictures on the screen. So that's Trisha on the right-hand side of the screen, on top right corner, and then Tara and Richa at the bottom left corner. Okay, so it's we have a full house at home. We have a nice circus act going, and it's a lot of fun. So I think everybody that, like I mentioned this earlier, that all women that I meet are always asking this question because they wonder if it's elusive, right? Is it even possible? Can it be done in a satisfactory manner? Will you feel really good about being in the corporate world or starting your own companies and giving it as much as you want to, and also giving your role as a mother, as a wife, as much, and also some other roles that you would have to do for your extended family, giving all of those roles justice, right? And do you feel good? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel you're always guilty? Do you always feel like you can do better? Do you think about the future when your children are going to come back and say, oh, Mom, you never really spent time with me, or not enough time, I always wanted more of you? And then do you feel that you're going to go into this point where you would regret some of the decisions that you made in the past? And I think those are all valid questions. And the way I see it is it is elusive, it is a balancing act, but it has been done. It's been done by many, many people. Okay. I would say that experts always talk about having moms stay at home being best for the child, especially in the formative years, and that's good. But these days it isn't practical, and history's told us of many, many successful women who've been able to raise confident, curious, diligent, successful children, and that's really what I aim for. Okay, from my own personal experience, my mother was a working mom. My father expected no less than me from what he would have expected from a son. And in addition, I've always enjoyed working. So in my mind, not working was never an option. Okay. So from that point of view, I've always thrown out any thoughts that came to me where when I said, when I even told myself that, hey, maybe if you stay at home, it'll be best for you and your family. And I always felt that I was a much better mother, a more patient one, if I had an identity outside of home. And that's the belief that gets me going every single day. So what I'll share with you is a few tips on how I'm able to make it balanced. And I would definitely say imperfectly, precariously maybe. Some days definitely better than others. I have a lot of balls in the air, and I think I catch most of them. I'm not sure, okay, but I think I do reasonably well. So so my first tip is to really find your willing helpers. And I know Hillary Clinton said, it takes a village to raise a child. It really does. Kids are a lot of fun, but tons of work, and hence for us to enjoy them, I feel like I need the help of as many people as possible. And I'm not exaggerating when I say as many people as possible. I have 7 resources at home. We're a smaller company. I have 7 resources at home. I think I've counted at some point in time up to 14 resources or 14.5 resources helping me manage my family. And the way I say this is I'm not employing all of these 14 people to handle my family. These are friends and family, community guys that live around me, and I've taken help from. Usually, and I'll give you an example, right? If I have a conference to attend and I don't have anybody at home because it's a Saturday or a Sunday, then I would typically go to a neighbor and say, please, hey, can my kids hang out with your kids for about 8 hours or so? And I greatly appreciate it, and I definitely return a favor. I think something like that. I have found people that are happy to help out, and also know, other working moms that know that, in circumstances where they have to go out and spend time away from home, that I would take care of their family if required. So at the end of the day, I do take the help of as many people as possible, friends, family, teachers, any acquaintances, anyone that I think is trustworthy, right? And I don't shy away from asking people for a favor and returning a favor, and only because at any point in time, if I feel that I'm overstepping, I also feel that the person that I'm asking the favor of will let me know. Okay, so I don't think that working women can do it all by themselves. It's the same as, you know, when they talk about a person being successful, there's always there's a very helpful and devoted spouse behind them, behind a successful person. I think it's the same for a woman to be good at and doing well at work as well as handling a family. It is important to get as much help as possible, to the point where you feel is comfortable for you. The second, I'd say, is find your loudest cheerleader. Okay, there's got to be someone who feels that when you win, they win too. And typically, it is your spouse. I mean, it could be your parents if you're not married, because you're going to have all sorts of problems, right? You're going to have scheduling issues and deadlines and all sorts of conflicting problems. And if you're always able to bring yourself and your cheerleader back to the larger goal, where you say, hey, here's what I really want to do, and I understand here's what your goals are, then you are able to find a solution that works for both of you. Okay. For example, the other day I got to tell my husband about a scheduled meeting in the evening, and he also had one at the same time. Now, typically the person who fills in is a person that is a close friend of mine. She usually comes in when we're having scheduling conflicts like this. But in this scenario, she wasn't available. And hence, I asked my husband, is this really something that you need to attend? Do you think, we compared notes on what the conferences were about, what we needed to do, and we're somehow able to come to middle ground and understanding of how we can handle the situation. I'll give you another example of one where, again, we had a conflict, and this time around, my 11-year-old, she's not a very big girl, but I called her and I said, Trisha, we're having this situation. Do you think you can put your sisters to bed? I'll be back in half an hour. And I was just amazingly surprised by what level of maturity she displayed, and I think she was pleasantly surprised with her own abilities to handle the situation, and it was amazing. So I would say that if you're able to find your cheerleaders, the loudest ones as well as others who share your passion, who cheer you on when you are successful, you're always going to find your abilities to handle all the stresses is much better, and you're going to be reasonably sane as you go through these challenges. Now, given that you are tapping into a lot of relationships that can help us, the next step I'd say is that you've got to remember not to overburden any of them, right? So if I did this to my husband very regularly, where I called him and I said, hey, you know what, can you fill in for me? I've got to attend this conference or do something, I asked him to do it very often, then that's where I think you're stressing the relationship. And it's the same with, asking your mother to take care of your toddler, and she feels she's not getting a break, then it is going to be not so happy situation at home. Okay, so always anticipate that it's going to happen, that these relationships that you have, that you're leveraging, are going to somewhat get tired, right? And so if you're able to anticipate it and know and plan for a backup, then it really helps in many, many, many good situations. So I'll give an example here where, I have someone who's at home who does cook for me. And I know that if she is not at home to cook, then in all situations are signaling a red, which is that usually things don't move. We need to have food at home for the kids when they come back home. And so what I do is I have an arrangement with another cook in the neighborhood that if my cook doesn't show up, that I leverage her as a backup cook, and she somehow always comes through for me. So if you're able to come up with a backup plan sometimes a backup plan for a backup plan, that's even better. Okay, but if anticipating these situations and anticipating the change, getting a little organized definitely goes a long way in handling the tough situations that come our way. The next tip I'd say is give up some OCDs. And what is an OCD? It's an obsessive compulsive disorder. Now I had a good number of passions, and I gave up some of them. Another one that I would say I'm quite proud of is that we don't have a TV at home. Okay, and we've not had a TV for 4 years. We don't watch TV at all. Okay, and because we have no time for it. So between work and just spending time with the kids, which I think is top priority, and I find some other ways to relax, and go and play tennis. I try not to do anything that I feel, to me, is a waste of time. And of course, there are a lot of other distractions, and we find other ways to entertain ourselves. But like I said, I try to stay away from anything that is a time suck. Okay. I used to be also very particular about home maintenance and look around my home, and I had to feel that that it had to be spotless. There should be no specks of dust around. And now I think I'm much more tolerant to maybe some things being out of place, toys being in the living room, because that's just all I can handle. So as long as you figure out what's important to you, you give up some of the things that you might be obsessive about, I feel that life gets a lot easier. Easier on you and easier in family. The next is that I think understand that something's got to give, right? Which is you really can't have it all. I mean, even you can ask the most successful women, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, yeah, I did." To the outside world, I've accomplished a lot. But when I ask myself, I do feel like that I could have done better in these areas. I could have spent more time in these specific things that were important to me. So I feel that everybody feels a sense of accomplishment when they follow their dreams and passions, but there are always going to be some regrets along the way, right? And so something's got to give, and just be prepared for it. You give up some fun activities. Condoleezza Rice, for example, she was the U.S. Secretary of State, and she was asked once if she plays golf for fun. And she responded and said, "I do not do anything for fun." So clearly, she's very competitive. When she takes something on, she gives it everything she has. So, and so she's kind of decided that, fun has no place in her life. Now that's taking it to an extreme, and I'm not asking anybody to go down that path, because I also feel that fun is a very important element. You've got to enjoy everything that you do. Enjoy your time with your family, enjoy your time with your colleagues at work, and the work that you do as well. But you do have to realize that something's got to give, And I've found that I'm not able to attend every single of my children's programs at school, and I try to do as much as I can. But the ones that I can't, I usually explain to my child, and I say, hey, here's why I can't do it, and I hope you understand. And usually they're okay with it, and you find other ways to make up for it. Okay, so that's in a nutshell. A few tips. I'm sure there's a lot more when you talk to successful working women, but I'll just review them once more, which is find your willing helpers, family, friends, hired help, employees, find your biggest supporters. Don't overburden any relationships, give up some of your obsessive compulsive disorders, and understand that something's got to give. And yes, I think all of you know that this is the best way to ease guilt, which is integrate work and home. Okay, get really creative. I take my kids to conferences sometimes. I bring them into work. They enjoy it as well. I give them some fun projects. Once I remember my son, I brought him to work, and he said, "Give me something to do," and he was very happy typing some of the business cards that I collected in conferences into an Excel spreadsheet. So anything that is fun for them to do, for them to feel important, and feel like they can understand some of what you're doing at work. When I work from home, there's comfort in just that. I mean, even if you're in a room, constantly talking to people on the phone, I find that there's huge comfort in the child knowing that you're in the house. Okay, and so that's perfectly fine. They do their activities, you do yours. That's also good. participate as much as possible in the kids' activities when you're at home. Try to give them the complete attention. Balance your multitasking with one-on-one time also with the kids. I try to see if I can do some of that. I try to look at the needs of each of my kids, and they're all different. So group time and finding ways to do activities together is fun. I also try to do something just one-on-one with each of my children. And yeah, I think there's ways that you can get creative and ease the guilt. Okay, know that it can be eased. So that's all I had, Ankit. I'm going to hand it back to you and check if the audience has any questions.
Move on to Q&A session now. How do we manage when we have relatives at home and we have to give them time, and also there are important work to be completed?
Yeah, I think that's a hard one, especially when they come for a short period of time, right? And what I have found is that if the relatives that visit you have an understanding of the nature of your work, they're usually more forgiving. And so I think that's where you'll have to really sit down with them. You can even tell them in advance before they come, here's what my schedule is like, and I know I'd love to spend time with you, but here are some of the challenges I have, and can we make the most of the time that we can spend with each other? Make them feel special when you get whatever little time that you get with them. Try to make them feel special.
Our next question is from Runa. How do we balance between work and home when living in a joint family, and how can it be handled better?
I went through some of this, and I was never in a joint family, but I can totally understand women these days who feel, my mother-in-law doesn't understand how important work is for me, or the fact that a lot of women these days are spending 8, 9, 10 hours working on an ongoing basis, right? And that's what the expectation is of me from my boss. So I think all of those questions are valid, and I think it comes down to understanding from both sides. You understanding from your point of view, what is it that you want to do? Can you communicate that well to your family members and say, hey, this is what my background is, this is what my dreams were, and I've always wanted to work and accomplish something, and I feel incomplete if I didn't do it, and here's what here's what the demands of my work is, versus also understanding from their point of view what their dreams were, and trying to find a middle ground. And I think that sometimes it's just like years of tough times before you get to a reasonable set of expectations from both ends. My mother-in-law also wasn't used to us spending, both my husband and I spending really long hours out of the house. And I think now she's come to terms with it because she's seen the world change so much. She's like, oh, okay, it's not just you guys, but everybody else in your age group, this is what they're doing. So sometimes it's just also telling them how the world's changed and what are some of the things that needs to happen, and maybe they'll be able to change their mindset to support you. And also when they know that you're trying to do the best for the family and keeping the family interests in mind, I think they'll give you allowances. In the US, this is a very interesting thing that used to happen where that there would be once a year or twice a year there would be parties where family members were invited into work, and the reason they did that is because the bosses would take the time to explain to the family members how your contributions have been to the company and how important and how well you've been doing your job. And it makes your family members feel really proud of you. And also they start to understand your side of the equation. And I think that if you're able to even get some of that happening over here in India, huge value there.
From Tejaswini, how can we explain working on Sundays to family?
So my question to you will be, Are you doing this because you're behind on your deadlines, or your bosses are asking you to come in on Sundays? I think there are some demands, okay, some demands that the work makes of you, right? For example, if you are handling events, you're doing a hackathon, and the hackathon is on a Saturday and a Sunday, then you just don't have a choice. You're working those days. You have to. But if you are spending time at work because you're behind on your deadlines, then you know what? You just have to figure out how to manage your time better. Ask for help. I don't ever work on Sundays, so I think you have to give your family that time.
Next question is from Mrs. Anita. How do we manage when we are single parent?
Okay, so Anita, I think that is tough. I mean, I have immense amount of respect for a single parent. I think it's hard to be a parent, and I think triply hard to be a single parent. It's tough. It really is. And I would say that at the end of the day, though, the reason, what drives you is your love for the child. And so I think that's where there are going to be times when your child doesn't understand what you're doing or why you're doing certain things. But usually, and I have immense faith in this, that usually the child will learn over time. So, they may not get it when they're a toddler, they may not get it when they are teens. They might when they grow older and they hit their late teens or 20s. So I'd say keep the faith, because I feel that if you do anything with the right intentions, with the interest of the child in mind and yourself, because you really have to preserve yourself for your child, you always turn out well.
Next question is from Mr. Sriram. How do I ensure sustainable performance at my work, family?
And family. Okay. So, and when you say sustainable, I guess it's inconsistent. Okay. So the way I look at it is, yes, I mean, at the end of the day, the person who is judging how you do at work is your boss. The person who is judging how you do at home is yourself, and maybe some other family members. But I think the most important thing is to satisfy yourself, right? And say, okay, here's the best I can do for my family. It's never going to be perfect. I think there's going to be periods of time where your family demands more of your attention, and your work might suffer because of that. And there's going to be other times where your family life is working like clockwork, and you've got a lot more demands happening at work. And I think you just have to, it's a very personal thing. You just have to figure it out as to what is it that you can do, what is it that you can handle, without over stressing yourself and being, I think, not performing to your satisfaction in any one of those roles. You will feel that you're not at your peak performance in both those roles, but you're going to find that optimal point where you say, okay, this is good enough. Okay. And I think good enough is what we're trying to aim for when you're doing multiple things, and that's what we have to also wrap our heads around, because in an ideal situation we have one thing that we work for, right? It's one goal, and that's it. You just you give it everything you have, but that's not how life is. Life is typically throwing a lot of curveballs at you, and so because you're going to have all of those curveballs, you're trying to balance it out. You're going to find a point where you say, hey, this is good enough. I remember, when I used to work for a company in the US called Mercury Interactive, every evening I would go home thinking, you know what, my work is not done, but this is all I can handle. And I think that's maybe that's the feeling that you get used to, and say, you know what, I'm just going to work till I feel I've done my best, and then move to my next set of responsibilities. And you know what, I also say that on the family side, it's harder because it's not instant gratification, right? I mean, if the work that you put in to nurture your family, your children, you don't see the results of it right away, because usually what you see is your child throwing a tantrum or misbehaving in front of friends, and that's where you need to keep strong and to say, I'm keep doing what I think is right, and my child is eventually going to figure things out. And assume that this, especially when you're working with your family, that you're never going to see immediate results. So you just have to keep yourself sane, work consistently, give your child and the rest of your family members as much love as possible, and it usually works out.
Now we'll take last question of the day. How do I maximize emotional energy within my organization apart from family?
So it's a very good question, because I guess the question is, do you have limited passion that you want to put? If you put it in work, you feel depleted when you're working when you're at home, or vice versa, right? If you give your family everything, then you feel you really need to be emotionless at work. And I think it depends on the kind of person you are. I'm not saying that people can't prioritize one over the other, but I am in general a reasonably calm person, and even when I have passion, I don't show a whole lot of emotion. Okay, whereas my husband is a highly passionate person and visibly passionate person. So he shows the same kind of passion at home and at work. So I think that it's the kind of personality you are, and I feel that you're probably going to feel passionate about work if you think it's important to you. You're going to find, you're going to think that your family is going to take away a lot of your emotions because you find it important to you. So I actually don't like something in between. I know this is something that people ask, which is, can you just cruise, right, and just get stuff done and be bored, right? And I think that's where the problem starts to come in. And if you at work are bored, then you've got to find something else that motivates you, because you have significant amount of time. You've got 8 hours that you're spending at work, and you can't tell me that I'm going to just cruise for 8 hours during the day. You've got to find something that you can put your energies into, and then the rest of the time you spend with your family, you're going to be re-energized. You're working with very different people. You're going to have lots of different laughs. It's a very different scenario when you go home. There's passion everywhere.
I think we are done with the Q&A session now. And thank you very much, Mrs. Ananth, for that interesting session. Thank you to all our attendees for participating in the webinar. We are glad that the questions kept coming. And please do send in your feedback and suggestions to us at eclub@nenglobal.org. Also, if you found the session interesting, feel free to blog or post about it. The recorded version of the webinar will be available on our website eclub.nenonline.org by tomorrow. Do join us for our next webinar on how to write a business plan. Expert Mr. Tim Matthews, Director of Providence Consultants, on 28th November from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Thank you once again and have a nice evening.
Thanks everyone for attending the session, and thank you NEN for giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience.